Hey everyone, and welcome back to the AI and Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mazor, Kario, product design and AI expert and the creator of the online leadership program, Unlocking the Power of Generative AI. And today we're tackling a critical issue of innovation, the process of collaborating with external partners to drive growth and foster creativity. Joining us is an expert in innovation who has dedicated his career to helping companies unlock new potential. Get ready for a conversation filled with actionable insight and inspiring idea. Hi, Yaron.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Yaron Flint is an onboarding, external innovation, and partnership expert. So I'm so happy to see you here. I'm sure it's going to be really, really interesting. And most of my speakers, they talk about AI and innovation in AI, and still I thought that this is a very important thing for companies today to speak about innovation and getting partnership from the outside, because if we're talking about AI, is one of the partnerships or one of the challenges that these companies would tackle if they will not be innovative. So for sure, it's one of the things they need to think about and speak about. So now we can start. What is open innovation, and why is it becoming increasingly important for companies today? And why don't you like the term open innovation?
Yeah, we just discussed this. So open innovation was coined by Henry Chesbrough in the beginning of 2003, if I am exact. And basically what he said or described are processes that are happening for any technical company, which basically, when they talk about innovation, it's mostly around internal processes. That was the domain in the century before us. So they talked about things like design thinking and how do I become more innovative as a company and how can I really turn new and exciting ideas that I encapsulate within our company and make it into new products. What happened is eventually, products are becoming more and more complicated, more fragmentized, more data-driven, more personalized. And the problem is, once you do that, you need a lot of software and capabilities that don't exist within your company in order to make these products available to the market. Bill Joy famously stated that no matter who you are, most of the smartest people work for someone else. And that is very, very true, even if you're Google and Microsoft. And eventually, if you want to onboard and external know-how and create these new and exciting products, external innovation is no longer optional. It's essential for any company. So unlocking this potential basically means that you have to go to the outside world. You have to work together with them. You have to onboard all in these exciting ideas. And why I don't like it is that open innovation basically says or states a situation in the world where the company opens up. When a company opens up, it means that basically an A process is still an open innovation, and I don't believe in that, because A is basically buying the technology and still open. It has nothing to do with openness, right? You're still closed in your mindset, wanting to do everything internally. So I believe that the real aim here is eventually partnerships and real-time partnerships. When you state or position your logo next to the logo of the company you're working with, not hiding behind it, not doing anything to kind of make the customers less aware of the potential of the collaboration that's going on, but really putting it front and center, understanding that you can learn as much as you can educate from the outside world. And that's the main goal. It's not open innovation anymore. It's how do I generate real-time partnerships with the outside world.
Yeah, but what you're saying is actually that most companies would say, okay, currently we don't have the talent and the know-how of doing something. So we could purchase it from the outside. We could just buy a company or buy a team or whatever, or bring experts inside. And it's like opening ourselves to a new technology. And you're saying, for me, it's not the same thing as doing a partnership with an external company or a startup or whatever, that they still have their own mandate, they're separate, but you could collaborate together, right?
Yeah, but let's not be naive about that. Most of M&A transactions fail, and they fail exactly because of this. Because of the company is not open-minded to collaborate with the other side, They bring in outside organization. In most cases, they stifle it under the organizational wind, or they basically turn it into part of the organization. So what's creative about that? You're basically taking great entrepreneurs with a great solution and putting them under the corporate umbrella. You're kind of turning them into part of your corporation by default, So the good ones, like you said, give them still the mandate to perform. But if that's the case and they still have the mandate to perform, why buy them? Why not just partner with them? Create a win-win situation, give them the money or enable them, to buy a technology from them and enable them to run by themselves and work together with them.
So why do you think it's so important today? So it was in the past and today is the same. And let's say a company who has a very good business model, they're making money right now, they don't think it's going to change in the near future. Why should they do that?
Why should they buy a company or work with the outside world?
Just do any external, thinking about the innovation and with external partners. It's complicated, it's hard for them.
But that's exactly the point. It's complicated and it's hard for them when they try to solve everything internally. The easiest part is find a great partner on the outside who can bring you this knowledge and know-how. He can accelerate, enrich, and help you in this process in things that you are less equipped to do. Eventually, an innovation is creating a new technology, right, or a new product out there that creates or generates and impacts the organization. It's very hard to do that while using only internal resources, specifically like we talked about the fact that companies are becoming, or products are becoming more and more complex. So there's no real way around it. You have to open up and work with the outside world. Now, the idea is, do I buy it and own it? And we kind of discuss why this doesn't work. Or do I find a good technology that will help me succeed and move forward because I don't have these internal capabilities?
And why do you think that most people would say that innovation in large corporations are hard and they're struggling doing innovation? Do you think this is the situation and why?
I think it is. If we look at what's going on, eventually when times are harsh, and I think we are in a harsh reality at this point, the first things that you cut as an organization are innovation, really not P&L process centric. Everything that is considered a cost center is the first thing that's cut off in a harsh environment. And that's a problem because innovation takes time. It's not something that you can do in weeks or months. It's bringing a new process to the organization, new product, new way of thinking to the organization. All of this takes time really to turn around. So the minute it becomes a bit hard, and these are cycles, you cut them off, it doesn't really allow you to compete and really do what you set out to do, which is turn your organization into a more innovative and bring this more innovative mindset. And that's a huge problem. You've seen that in many cycles. It happened in the beginning of the 2000s where you had all these real estate whatever happened in the market then, and then you have all these kind of cycling going back and forth. Companies eventually understand that they need the time and longitude to do this. And if they don't give this the chance, it will never be successful. Now, the problem is that the cycle goes that if you have the time and money, you throw money at it and hope something sticks. And when the time is harsh, you cut everything out. This doesn't work anymore. So I think this process or this description of how innovation is done is dead. Companies will figure out or think about how to do it in a more structured way, in a more managemental way, in a more professional way. Kind of like what happened to QA and product management 10 or 15 years ago, where this was all over the place and eventually companies understood how to do it in a more structured and professional way. So I think companies are eagerly seeking how to do innovation in a more manageable way, in a more processed way, and do it more efficient with less cost and reduce the risk. And this is like, you've seen things like the new ISO of innovation management, ISO 5, 6, 001. And basically there's nothing changing about bringing a new ISO to the market. But why do you bring an ISO to the market? It's because people or companies feel that this is less organized, everything is all over the place, and you want to bring structure into it. So I think this shows a little bit the maturity of the market wanting to onboard innovation in a more professional manner.
You know, when I think about managers of big corporations, doesn't matter if they're technology corporations or not, the way that they think about their business is very, very different than the way that maybe new companies or startups are thinking. And in many cases, if they're investing sometimes in these companies, or just just collaborating and investing resources and time, doesn't matter, not money, they think the same way as they think in their own business. They're not thinking as a VC, or they're not thinking differently about this partnership. They're thinking about it as something that is inside their internal business. And I think this mode of thinking about the collaboration, about the timeline, about the results, about what they want to drive to is very different. And as I see it, most management leadership capacities are for big corporations are not aimed this way. They're not thinking this way about any kind of business activity, I would say. Right?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think this is one of the most challenging points of innovation in general, which is basically convincing people who think they know what it's all about that they don't. And, a lot of companies say they're very, very innovative.
Say that to a manager who thinks he always knows it. Yeah.
Try to do that, and specifically, I worked for an American company as an Israeli, responsible for bringing innovation from the outside world. And I saw that day to day, coming to an American manager and saying, hey, what you did up until now is not right. This is the right way to do it is extremely challenging. And that's definitely, I think, one of the biggest challenges that a professional innovation manager has, because he's basically brought from the outside world into a corporation or kind of parachuted into that. And he needs now to convince the people that what they think they did in the right way is not, and how to change that and how to become more process-oriented and more structured in that approach. And like I said, this exactly happened with Q&A managers and product managers decades ago. And this is exactly what we're seeing now with the innovation. So I'm quite optimistic. I'm seeing the challenge from organization. I'm seeing the understanding that they have to have it. I'm seeing that bids are now including a section on innovation. And if you want to participate and win a bid, you need to show what you've been doing around it. So companies are pressured to have this less as a PR exercise, but more as a real professional practice. And they need to show what have they been doing around it. So they are, if they don't understand it, the market makes them understand it.
Yeah. So why do so many corporate partnerships, especially those with startups, fail to achieve their objectives?
Well, around innovation, it's quite simple. It's what we said before. I think they're still not open to understand the benefits and why is this important. It's like what eventually, there's a very interesting phrase of the former CEO of Apple saying, Jobs, who said, it's important to see changes as an opportunity, not a threat. And that's really important, because if you still see what's going out or happening in the outside world as a threat, you will never be able to innovate. You will never be able to thrive. You need to understand that the world is changing and you should change along with it. Once this understanding kind of hits you, it's all about how do I do it in the best and most efficient way. That's quite the easier part. So I think that the biggest problem is really changing the mindset of an organization, making them understand that they cannot do everything by themselves or NIH, that it's okay to try and fail as long as you learn from the process, and start putting the right people in place rather than just setting an engineer from the company saying, hey, you know what, you're head of innovation from this day on. And this, I think, is the problem, because if you're not taking it seriously, not putting the budget, not putting the resource, not putting the right people, it will never be successful. So the understanding is the first step, But then how to do it in a structured and more professional way is the second one.
Yeah. And I think that I can just imagine being this first person, as you said, parachuted into this position, and everyone is thinking very differently than you. And I would say in general, if you're going to be the first innovation person in a company, you have very, very hard work. And I guess it could be sometimes too challenging for these people, and in many cases they just leave to another company. Just too hard for them.
Exactly. And I've been doing this for, I think, 3 or 4 companies by now. Like you said, it's very, very hard to be the first one. But it's even harder when the organization has internal innovation processes that are not going anywhere or not very successful. And you're coming and trying to explain to them why. Because they're saying, hey, why do we need you? We've been doing it for so many years. We're not that successful, but we know what needs to be done. It's not up to us. We're not the ones that are failing and making the mistakes. It's the market, right? It's the easiest way to say that. Yeah. And now you need to convince them and show them why it's exactly them and not the market that are failing.
And I think that there is this notion of saying, yeah, we're trying and we're not succeeding. So it's like, it's okay because innovation is about trial and error, it's learning from experience, whatever, and it's some kind of an excuse of doing whatever you want with innovation. So, and then you are surprised that it's not really working, right?
I think this is a very, very important issue that you just stated, that innovation in some way doesn't need KPIs because it's experimental. It's the other way around. If you're just going around throwing money at problems, nothing will stick. You have to have a processed way of thinking about it. But you need the KPIs to be, how should I say, tuned to what you're trying to do, right? You're not looking for an ROI, you're looking for a total addressable market. You need to have the measurements in place that show the progress eventually, that gives you the decision when to leave the innovation or the innovative project that you're trying is going nowhere. These are these metrics are extremely important, specifically in innovation group, because they can be all over the place. It's just a matter of tuning them to the right channel in a way of looking at things. And it's very, very important eventually to make sure that you stand behind them and doing it in a right and a processed way and not just throwing money at it, because then, of course, innovation will not be successful.
Yeah. Another thing that you mentioned, when you're coming to a company and maybe you're not the first, they're saying, yeah, we're doing innovation. We have these groups. They meet once in a month or in half a year. They're doing these like design thinking, or they have like a group of innovators or whatever. They have these internal projects, and some of it was even successful. So why do we need to go outside? We're doing it. It doesn't matter. And in general, how do you define what are the borders of innovation? So you could say, okay, each time I'm doing a process a bit like faster or better, that's innovation. So it's very hard to explain why it's needed because it's so fuzzy.
I 100% agree. And I think the distinction between internal processes in innovation and external ones are very, very important, like you stated, because this could become, like you said, very, very fuzzy. Let's say you have a group that develops things internally, but they go to events, they see what's happening out there, they bring new and talented people from the outside to develop it by themselves. Is this internal? Is this external? You're bringing talent from the outside world, but you're doing it internally, right? So these kind of exactly borderlines become very, very fuzzy. And I think eventually it's very simple to distinguish between them. It's either related to your core or it's not. If it's anything that has to do with your core products that you're doing every day to day, it's not true innovation. It's product enhancement. It might have innovative processes, but it's not really doing true innovation. Taking the product you're already doing and making it better doesn't necessarily fall in innovation. Innovation is when you bring something that hasn't been in the organization up until this point, right? It's something new. It's something refreshing. It's either a new way of thinking. It's new products, new revenue streams, new business models. This is the definition of innovation, and it's very, very important to understand, is this truly related to the core of what I'm doing or not?
Yeah, and again, like, what is the closeness to my core? You could say, okay, so currently I'm going from that market to this market and I'm changing the way I'm marketing or selling. Maybe that's an innovation because I'm doing it a bit differently. Or going from your core product to a version of this core product. It could be some kind that you could say that's new. It depends on how they define it in the end.
Exactly. And eventually it can become your core. So, you're developing now something new, it works, and then it becomes quite of a part of your core activities.
Yeah, and one more thing which I'm thinking about incentivization within these companies. So currently, the CEO by the board or the managers by the CEO, it doesn't matter, they're incentivized to do something, which is making the core more profitable and better, right? This is what they're paid for. And now you're giving them another matrix of doing something. Sometimes you're not really incentivized to do it, or even the other way around, to do things in a more maybe risky way or in a more open way, in a less structured way. And in many cases, it's just the other way around of what is called a good employee to do innovation.
I think this is what you said is extremely important, because eventually if it's not translated into incentives, it will never happen. If you're coming to an employee and saying, this is very, very important to me, blah, 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 but I'm not incentivizing you to do that, then it would say, okay, so it's not important for you. Because if it was important for you, you would pay for it, right? So you have to understand that if you truly want to become innovative in spirit, you need to incentivize your employees to do so. And it needs to be part of the matrix and part of the bonuses and everything. And one interesting way of tackling that, which I saw in one of the organizations, is basically linking it to the budget. So, in large organizations, the way it works is that the group presents what they want to work on in the next year, or the R&D, and they get budgets for that. So according to what they asked for. So this company basically linked this budget to innovation and said, I'm giving you exactly the amount you asked, but 10% out of that goes to innovation. And you can only do innovative processes around that. And if you don't, this 10% is gone. Imagine what? Everyone utilized these 10% to the limit, right? And that's the idea of basically showing that you truly or doing what you mean and what you're saying. So innovation becomes truly impactful rather than just a PR exercise.
What are strategies that companies can use to improve their chance of success when engaging in open innovation or partnership initiatives?
I think, like we discussed, it's first of all about the mindset, understanding what innovation is all about, understanding why is this important, and showing the employees that this is important. The mindset is the first thing that nothing moves if you're not doing it in the right way. But it's not enough there. Then you need the right processes and the right team members to do that. And this is where a lot of the companies are failing when they have already established the right mindset. Right? You think you know how to do innovation, you want to do innovation, and then you put the wrong people to lead it. Not only that you put the wrong people, but you have the wrong processes, not understanding how it's done. A good example on that, onboarding startups as a vendor. If you're thinking about startups as a vendor, then you're not really truly have the right processes to do innovation. Right? Because let's say, and I see this a lot for companies saying, hey, this startup is great, but it doesn't stand in my or has my standards. It doesn't comply with my rigorous regulation. And of course it doesn't. It doesn't need to. You're just evaluating the technology. You need to work together with them. If you're looking at them as someone who needs to comply to everything you have, you're looking at them as a vendor. And that's the difference. Okay, so you need to have not only the mindset, but the process and the team members to drive this forward. And we can talk only about that and why is this important. Now, the whole process itself has to have a real good strategy and KPIs like we discussed. You need to understand what you're looking for. You need to know how to do the scouting in the right way or look for these wire technologies on the outside world. Have the experience of creating these partnerships and generating these partnerships, and basically have the onboarding side as well prepared for the absorption of these innovative technologies from the outside world.
Yeah. What you mentioned about regulations or rules or thresholds for these kinds of partnership, especially if it's a traditional organization, is very problematic for small companies or startups, because they don't have the budget, they don't have the resources, they don't have the knowledge and the need to go and do all these regulations. In many cases, it's a border that they cannot cross and they're not willing to try even. It's too hard. And the way that big companies are seeing it is as risk again and not as an opportunity, and therefore it's very hard to collaborate with them if this is the first of many to be challenges that they face when they're working with them.
Exactly, and this is exactly the point. You need to understand that working with a startup is not working with a regular vendor. It doesn't mean that the vending process should be replaced, but you have to have a process in mind which is kind of a pre-vending phase, right? Being able to look at these startups, evaluate them, work together with them, find the right matrix of how to do so. And eventually, when you have the product ready to go to the market, you need to comply with all the regulation, but it's done together under a co-creation process. And this co-creation is very, very important. If you don't have this as a core and you're looking for technologies on the outside as something that is exact fit, again, you're not thinking about innovation. You're looking about how do I expand my vendors list.
Yeah. So what are the most effective ways for corporations to build relationships with and support startups?
I think, first of all, it's like we discussed, it's seeing partnerships as they are, which is a win-win situation. I can educate as much as I can learn from these partnerships and find these true win-win conditions. You don't need any more equity transactions into companies in order to work along with them if they kind of complete what you're doing. If it's really complementary to what you're doing, everyone will understand why this is a win-win situation, right? You need that when it's not a win-win situation and you're trying to generate a win-win situation here. Have a dedicated team, like we discussed, people who know what they're doing, who understand the meaning of innovation, who can create the trust and rapport on the other side. Imagine the situation. You are a big corporation. You're trying to convince a good startup to work with you. Why should they? They're good. They have many companies wanting to work together with them. So if you're not able to convince them and show them that you have the right process and the right team, they would see this as a waste of time and a waste of money, the good ones again. And look at this as an entire toolkit, right? It's not just an M&A process. It's not a CVC process, investing. It's not an operational team. It's a mixture of them. And then you can decide where to go along with according to what you're trying to do. So eventually, it's all that goes down to the strategy. So like I said, it's a win-win situation, partnership, strategy, and the right team to push and promote it.
So you mentioned two things. One is the team and the second is the partnership. And I have two questions about it. First, the team. So if you're bringing people who are not that strong within the organization, they could be very talented, but they don't have the power to do any big changes and to move things in the company. First, would they succeed? That's one thing about the partner's engagement. That's one thing. And the second one, you mentioned that you're eager to work with a startup and you need them. Corporates would say, no, it's the other way around. They need us. They're small, they don't have the budgets, they don't have the resources, they don't have the experience, the market understanding. So they need us, and therefore they need to comply to our needs.
So I'll start from the second point because I think it's more important. You're totally right. A startup needs a large organization in order to succeed and work together with them. Eventually, they need to go to market, and this is the best way to do so. But do they need this specific company to work with? No, they have a lot of opportunities out there. They can choose and pick. So they need to pick a good company to work with. But they can easily go with one of your competitors because they are taking this more seriously. So the mindset and thinking of the startup needs us and therefore they will need to do everything we tell them is obsolete. This is thinking of the previous century. Because the startup, what they will do, they will move along to someone who already kind of grew beyond that and understands how real partnerships looks like. And there are companies out there that are already thinking like this. So if you're thinking like you would think, I would say 50 years ago, you will never be successful in working with startups. So you need to evolve.
And I want to say something which is even further, more strict. they cannot allow themselves to waste time with a company that is not fast enough. So it's not that they don't want to work with you or they don't care about your needs. They cannot afford wasting time in years of just thinking together what would be done.
And they don't need to, because there are many companies out there who are already understanding this and offering them a better approach. So why should they? It's very easy. I don't need to compromise on something that I have a lot of alternatives out there. And that's exactly what large corporations don't understand. Regarding your first question about the team themselves, I think I'm a perfect example for that. I was always parachuted into these roles from the outside, being able to create the trust and rapport with the people you work with. And I think it goes down eventually to the manager himself or the guy who's leading this. Because if you coming with the mindset of I know better than anyone else and I will educate you, of course you will not be successful. No one will listen to you. How can you come to an engineer who's been doing the same thing for 40 years and telling him you're doing something wrong, let me teach you how to do it better? What you should do is say, I'm bringing knowledge that you didn't have, and let's work together in order to make this more successful. So I'm not coming to compete against what you're doing on your day-to-day basis. I'm trying to answer the things that you've been struggling with and helping you find the right solutions to solve them in order to become more efficient and better in the process that you're doing. So again, think about this also internally. Not as someone against the other, but a real partnership of working together in order to achieve the common goals.
Yeah. What are your predictions for the future of open innovation or partnership? And how can businesses prepare for these changes? And I'm just putting like an emphasis on AI being right now a very, very big impact on the industry and surely going forward.
Yeah, but you have to remember that eventually AI is another big topic. This always happens, it started from communication, then VR, AR, all these kind of things are coming every now and then into the market and creating a very, very nice buzzwords that everyone works around with. And AI will tomorrow be another thing and a new and exciting topic. So you need to understand
I'm not sure it's the same size. I'm into that and I believe it's much bigger, but maybe you're right.
For sure, it would create a bigger impact for sure, because it's changed the way that we're thinking or handling things. But you can't say that this is the end. Eventually there will come a better and bigger technology that will change and disrupt what you're doing, and this will become the new buzzword, right? And AI will become...
I'll tell you why I don't think it's a buzzword. First, right now it's a buzzword and it's a technology for sure. But if we're going to have more and more digital employees, AI employees, in your company, and you'll need less human resources and you'll need a certain knowledge within your company in order to compete, it's not just another technology. It's a new structure of business. It's a new way of just understanding who's the employees and what they're doing, and it's going to have an impact on the society as a whole. So it's not only a technology that you need to utilize as I see it.
Well, I think that, and sorry if I'm I'm going to be a little bit harsh here, but I don't think, I think AI experts are kind of fall in love with the notion of AI eventually. And it's like, if you look at the history, eventually every company changed their model in some way. For example, you don't see anyone driving a carriage anymore, right? And there's still drivers around. So it's kind of like the same thing. So you're saying, maybe I'll take out the drivers now and have a fully autonomous vehicle. But still, maybe the professions and the skills of tomorrow are changing, and the ways that you apply them are changing. But companies will still be out there. They're going to become better in a different way, maybe more efficient, utilizing new and exciting technologies that previously were done by humans. And I really like the phrase of saying, eventually AI will not replace people. It will replace people who are not working with AI. So you need to know how to work with AI eventually and really incorporate it as part of the organization. And it's definitely going to create a change. But it's not going to change everything in a so dramatic way that didn't happen in the previous century, where you have airplanes coming in or you had the cars coming in and things like that. It will change the way that you're doing business eventually. And it will become more efficient and better. and more process-oriented or less process-oriented and more efficient in many ways. But eventually it's another change within the entire humanity kind of when we're seeing it because we're here right now. But I'm quite sure that people, when they were seeing airplanes and they were seeing cars centuries ago, they felt the same thing, right? And this is what the people who would come 100 years from now will laugh at us and saying, hey, this is very, very basic now, the AI and everything in the process that's going on. And this is how I see it. So eventually, all of these technological evolvements are part of our advancements as a human society. Definitely an influential topic, but it's not the most dramatic that ever happened. It's part of the process that's going on of us becoming a more innovative society or a more, let's say, less human-centric society in so many ways. And I think the same way goes to innovation eventually, because if you think about it, that was a very big buzzword like a decade ago, 2 decades ago, where companies, like we said, put a lot of money into that, not doing it in a processed way. And now you're seeing the structure. And the structure comes because people have experimented with it, understood what works and what doesn't, wrote books about it, like I did, but basically, and showing what really works and doesn't in order to educate the new people who are coming or the new managers of how to do things in a more processed and driven way. So this kind of, path towards the future is showing that you're taking things more seriously in a more structured and processed way. And again, I always refer to the Q&A and product management as a great example, because that happened not such a long time ago, and it became part of the core of the organization. So I believe that it has a future. I just wrote a very interesting newsletter about it saying, is corporate innovation dead? I don't think it's dead, but corporate innovation as a PR and a matter of just throwing money at it is dead. And it will become more processed and more management driven and more professional.
Yeah. So you mentioned your book. So tell us, what's the name of the book? And I will incorporate the last question into it. What's your number one tip for leaders today? And maybe you could take it from the book or a few of them from the book.
Yeah, so sure. So first of all, I'm not going to say everything because you should read the book. No,
Sure.
The book is basically really comes from my experience, and it talks about external partnerships and external innovation and how to do it in a less opportunistic way, more structured, less opportunistic, reduce the amount of risks, and show how you can do even things that you didn't believe could be done in a processed manner, like processing innovation. How does that work? So yes, it's not how do I innovate in a structured way, but how do I approach it in a structured way? KPIs, the right team, all of this is around that with a lot of insights and cool ideas. So eventually when a company says, I want to do it now more professionally, this would be a great guidebook for that. And regarding the tip, I think it's very, very important when you're talking about eventually the partnerships or the outside world. And I think we touched upon that. It's if you're a company, don't waste your time with companies who don't see the potential in real partnerships. If you think that these companies, this big company is exploiting you or doesn't understand the true notion of real partnerships, move on. Go to someone else who understands this. There are enough potential customers out there, and work together with the people who will not waste your time and money like it previously was. So you can, like I said, because things are becoming more processed and more manageable, you can decide who you want now to take rather than not waste your time.
Generally, I come from the startup side, and it's like the underdog in this business. And I'm always for them in a way that I hope that they will have more opportunities and more ways to choose. And I hope they choose well. Sometimes this decision of finding the right partners is the decision that will decide if they continue to exist or not. So it's very, very important for startups.
Yeah, and I don't envy at this point. I think it's very much what happened with customers, where the market has become customer-centric and large organizations cannot abuse their customers anymore. So it becomes the same thing with the startups as well. You know, if you truly want to work with a startup and you know, on board and find the good ones, you'll need to progress. You need to know how to work together with them as a partner and not just exploit them. If you're thinking in this mindset, you will not be able to do anything with startups anymore.
So thank you, Yaron. And the last question would be, where could people hear more about your book and about your work and contact you?
So I think the best way to approach me is via LinkedIn. You know, we can always take it from there. I basically, like I said, I created a newsletter that goes along the book and talks about topics that are coming from the audience and people who read it and want to discuss further topics for my book themselves. And eventually it's available in Amazon. I'm not going to send you to my publisher's site, but easier to access via Amazon. And I'm very reachable on LinkedIn. You know, just reach out and we can have a further discussion on this.
Thank you, Yaron. It's been very insightful and fun to talk to you, so thanks. And to all of you changemakers out there, thank you for joining us. I invite you to sign up to my new online leadership program, Unlocking the Power of Generative AI, designed to equip leaders with the skills to build successful generative AI products. And I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya.